Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbon TV or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. If you want to take your shooting experience to the next level, then check out Coltac gear for 100% made in America products. Coltac manufactures specialty gear designed for long-range shooting, hunting, and other tactical applications. From their support bags, suppressor covers, shooting mats, and a whole lot more, Coltac is creating tough, durable, and innovative gear for both civilian and professional markets. Go to coltac.com to see all that they have to offer. That's cole-tac.com. If you are looking to get a new rifle or build your own, look no further than Kelbley's. Kelbley's actions and rifles have a higher level of accuracy and hold 92 world records set on either one of their rifles or rifle actions. Whether you're looking for an ultralight mountain rifle or wanting to compete in precision rifle shooting, Kelbley's has you covered. Go to kelbley.com to find out more or give them a call as their customer service is the best. That's KELBLY.com. Kelbley's. If you're looking to take your hunting to another level, there's no better way to do it than by subscribing to onX Hunt. If you want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, onX is the #1 GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust onX Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. If you want to know more about onX, go to onxmaps.com/hunt or download their app today for a free trial. If you are wanting to become more accurate and deadly with your shooting, one of the best things you can do is upgrade your trigger with a Timney. Timney triggers are 100% made in America and have been since their founding, providing a crisp, reliable, and repeatable trigger break every time. I'll be shooting Timney triggers in my guns this year, and I hope you'll join me in shooting the world's finest trigger. Go to timneytriggers.com to get yours today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, and today's episode is one for the books, and specifically one for the record books, as we are working on our dedication and focus to become better marksmen. We got Matthew Hayes, a partnership marketing specialist in the hunt department at Leupold, here to talk all about his journey through NRL, PRS shooting, hunting, and then obviously we're going to be covering Leupold optics as well and new releases for 2025 and what's happening. So without further ado, Matthew, how you doing, brother?
I'm great and happy to be here.
Dude, it's a great time. I love podcasting. When I first got into it, I didn't even listen to podcasts. I was like, I'm just going to start one. And what a wonderful networking tool. I've realized, like, how often do you get to have, especially in today's day and age, to have dedicated, uninterrupted conversation time with another person?
Oh yeah, you get an hour of one-on-one. Like
Yeah.
how often do you get that anymore?
Yeah. None. I got 3 boys. It's hard enough to like ever have a phone call. Like, thank the good Lord for text messaging, because when I'm around my children, it's like, Dad, Dad. I try to sneak off to my office. They're like, Dad, Dad, waving me down through windows. And
Your kids are probably still young. My oldest is 14. He doesn't even acknowledge me anymore. Just wanders off.
how many kids do you have?
I have 2,
Okay.
11 and 14-year-old. So
Dude.
they're at the fun age.
Yeah. Are boys or girls?
One of each.
Okay. Are you getting a little attitude at home?
Oh yeah. Yeah, the daughter, the 11-year-old, way worse than the 14-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh.
People always said, I have 3 boys, 10, 8, and gonna be 6. And everyone is always like, you put in your hard work at the beginning, and then at the end, it's a lot easier. Girls, they're a lot easier younger, but then as you get older, it's like, oh, baby.
Yeah, and then my parents told me, and it was pretty good advice. Like the first, there's a period of time, like between like 13 and like 20, where they're not going to want a lot to do with you.
Mhm.
And then it all goes back. So you go to the beginning where they always want to be around you and hanging out and
Yep.
talking all the time. So
Yeah. Oh man, I love it. So, what's your history? Because you seem like a younger fella, but you've been in the military, you've competed, you've played sports. Like, it seems like when you and I first met at SHOT Show, like, and I was learning about you, you're all over the board. You've dabbled in it all.
yeah, I've had a fun life. Interesting life. I played, a lot of sports in high school, wrestled, played football. Then, I didn't really want to keep playing football. So I'm like, my best friend at the time was join the Marines. So I'm like, screw it, go in the Marines with you. Then got out of that, and my wife's family's from Oregon, so we moved up to Oregon and started getting into long range shooting a bit to get a little bit better at hunting. Or at least long range competition. So I
Yeah.
started long range shooting in Arizona when I was a kid. There was actually this old guy in the desert that would set up these steel plates out to like 1,500 yards, and it's not a sanctioned range; it's just in the middle of the desert. And the only rule was you had to paint the targets.
Fair enough. Dude, that's awesome. So you started shooting at what age were you? Was that before military or after that you started?
Yeah, I was 14 when I started. So
Wow.
when I was 16, I bought my first long range scope. That was a Leupold LRP.
Okay.
So a little bit older. I had the massive dial on it, but
That
I
one that
still,
stands like 2.5 inches tall or whatever.
oh yeah, I still own every single one of those. I love the LRP.
That's awesome. So, okay, let's back it up here because I want to know your origin story because uh, who taught you how to hunt? Where did hunting step into your journey? When did it grab hold of your heart and your life? And then how did shooting play a role into that? Or did shooting happen at the same time? Break it down for us.
I started hunting when I was about 6. So my dad, you know, growing up in the country and farmlands in Wiley, Colorado, so super small town, maybe 120 people in it.
Hmm.
Um, Growing up there, we'd go back with my grandparents all the time because my parents were in the military, so we moved a lot. But taught me how to hunt there, and then we finally, once I got old enough to kind of start going by myself, or he would kind of drop me off in the desert. But
Yeah.
we would, yeah, move back to Arizona or move to Arizona. My dad got stationed at Davis Monthan, so started hunting there, and kind of what got me into long range shooting is try to freaking kill coos deer. Like,
Mm.
coos deer are such a pain, and normally, back then it was like 200-yard shots, and you're doing a lot of Kentucky windage. So holding over the back, and these stupid little deer are so good at dodging things for some reason.
Uh-huh.
And then just started shooting long range.
That's wild. Okay, so last night I was recording a podcast and with Colton Bonioli. Are you familiar with Colton?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so he's from Arizona as well. I'm pretty sure it was what we were talking about because he was like, "Yeah, I got into shooting and hunting, but before rangefinders, and I wanted to get really good at shooting coos deer, and everyone like." You just kind of had to figure it out. It wasn't like you were dialing for distance or all
Oh
that.
no,
So,
yeah. It was crazy because like back then there was no YouTube or anything like that. So you're out there with a dope card, learning how much you have to dial. Like when I got my LRP, I was finally able to dial distance. So it was going out there like you'd shoot at 100, shoot at 2, and see where you hit on the target, make a little bit of adjustment, see where you hit again, and just keep going out distance. So like half your shots were just in the dirt. So you're just wasting ammo.
back when it was a little cheaper and a little easier to go out and do that. So,
Oh yeah.
dude,
Yeah.
that's wild. Okay, so coos deer. That's what you were like. I want to get better. Shoot at these small little animals at distance. What were you shooting back then? What'd you get started on?
Back then, my first rifle was the 30-30 lever action. That's what I killed a lot of deer with. Then we went to 30-06 when I got a little bit bigger, and then I got a 308, and that's when I kind of started shooting a little bit longer range. Back then, there wasn't a lot of like you had like 7 SAUM or something like that that you could reload for, but as a kid, it was hard to reload, like make
Yeah.
enough money to get everything. So I shot a lot of 308, and you could get shorter barrels. Like it was an easier round back then than now it's insane. Like the past 20 years on ammo has gone crazy.
Hmm.
But that was kind of your only option for shooting a little bit longer range.
Yeah.
Um so like my first mile shot, like I maxed out the LRP dial and the elevation internally on the reticle just to even hit a mile. So 308s don't do great at distance.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I got a buddy, Sam. You actually met him at Shot Show. He's shooting PRS with the 308, and not very common nowadays. We'll get into this a little bit as we talk about the competitive shooting. But he's like, that's what I have, and that's what I can shoot, and I know my stuff.
And they still work. Like as much as people want to go with like 6 Creed, 6 GT, 6.5, 308s. It's been so trusted over the years. Like there's easy load data on it if you want to reload. There's great manufacturer ammo. Federal, is kind of like the go-to for most people for factory ammo. But Hornady makes great ammo for it now. Nosler, pretty much any ammo company out there makes great ammo for it. So
Yeah.
it's readily available and easy.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to get into reloading, then that's a whole nother bag of worms.
Mm. So, who taught you to hunt? You said you started hunting at 6 years old, and when did it like become something that you're like, "Oh, I want to do this more"?
Oh, the first one. So basically, when I was a kid, to hunt, you had to basically shoot. We had a bunch of skunks in the yard, so you'd have to drop a skunk and right in the head without it spraying. Because if you shoot a skunk wrong, it's going to still spray everywhere and
Uh
it's going
huh.
to reek. So you just sit outside with a little 22 and just blast them in the head. And so you shoot enough of them, and then they're like, "Oh yeah," like my dad's like, "Oh, you can come out and shoot a deer this year." So shot a deer when I was 6 with a 30-30, and my son's actually shot his first deer with the same rifle, so it's
Cool.
kind of a cool thing, but I was hooked from the beginning. There's something about the adrenaline rush, like, you get that quick moment, your heart spikes, trying to stay steady. Back then, it was a lot of standing up. You didn't have all the shooting sticks or
Hmm.
anything that you do now. So it's a quick stand-up shot, and trying to nail a deer at 150 yards with a lever gun is pretty fun.
Dude, that's awesome. Do you think the hunters are better now, or were they better back then because they had to get closer or shoot offhand, or you know?
I think they're better now. Like, everybody's understanding animals more. Like, back then, it was a lot of luck, a lot of, you had to sit there and figure it out a ton. Like, a Coos deer, it took me like 6 years to kill one.
Hmm.
Now there's so much readily available information that it makes it very easy. Not easy, but helps out a lot. So I think hunters are way better now. They're more informed. The information's there, units are there, like Go Hunt, Onyx, all these things that make it so easy to kind of pre-scout.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people are better at it.
Do you feel like there's an unfair advantage when it comes to like concept of fair chase though, with how much technology or new information is provided?
Nah, not at all. Like, you got to use the tools available. Like, you still, how many people go out and never and don't kill anything every year? Like, there's
A lot
plenty.
of people.
Yeah. So the fair chase thing, it's still there. Like, you look at draw rate or harvest rates through units,
Hmm.
still really low. A lot of places, like, you still got to work for it.
Yeah.
So especially out here on the Oregon coast, that's a madhouse. So
Yeah, yeah. No, that's very true. So, with your journey in hunting and you starting at a younger age, and your dad providing you an opportunity to shoot your first deer at 6, and really growing on that, what would you say hunting has done for you, as far as the transformation of your life or the trajectory of how it went? Like, when did you like, holy smokes, this is the coolest?
I don't know. For me, it's always been an escape. Like, I was not the best kid in the world.
Mm,
I've gotten a lot of trouble, did a lot of dumb stuff. It was always just like an escape. You know, my dad would let me go out for 2, 3 weeks by myself out in the desert and just hunt. And you're by yourself. It's quiet. You can just think through everything. To me, that's kind of what it's about. Like, I enjoy hunting with other people and doing things, and I think now I get more enjoyment out of seeing somebody else kill their first animal than me actually getting anything.
uh-huh.
But it's still that quiet time. Like, you're sitting there glassing, everybody's just kind of relaxed, quiet. You get just thinking time. So
Yeah.
I think for me, that's kind of what hunting is. It's You still get that adrenaline rush. You always your heart pumps a little bit every time. Like, it gets a little easier the more you kill, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's just quiet
Yeah.
out in the woods, away from the noise. No.
Mm. I agree. I agree. It's all about that connecting with nature, connecting with your creator, our creator, and just you know identifying our place in the world. It's so easy to get lost in the constant buzz of society, and how we operate with the everybody's busy, right? Instant gratification, fast food, drive-throughs, gotta go, instant, instant. To be able to put a pause on it and be like, actually, if I want to hunt and I want to hunt successfully, I really need to slow down. I really need to go slower. I need to pause. I need to reflect. I need to think things through rather than jump into conclusions or reacting. We need to be able to respond to our environment and what's going on around us. And for me, those are one of the things that are the most powerful for why hunting has transformed my life beyond the fact of like courage and teaching the grit and the tenacity of like if it's meant to be, the old football quote, if it's meant to be, or yeah, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. Like
Yeah.
I have to see this through, and it's true. It's true. And I think there's little things in life that really compare to the transformative power of what hunting provides for humans when you actually, I don't want to say get to the purity of hunting, but get back to the basics of hunting.
Yeah, it's a very different world. Like, especially how many new hunters do we have in the past, 5, 6 years after COVID and everything? And my biggest fear is that a lot of these people are going to stop because they're not successful. And
Mm,
it's, you know, you don't have to be successful to have a good time out in the woods. You don't have to kill an animal every single time. It's more about the experience, the journey, the learning aspect of it, and it's just it's fun. Like you gotta enjoy the time. You're getting with Mother Nature. You're getting down to our roots. This is where we're from.
yeah.
It's not hanging out in a bar somewhere. It's
Yeah.
out in the middle of nowhere.
It's so funny. Like people forget that um, people go hiking without weapons, like for enjoyment. You got to remember, like, okay, I'm getting into hunting. Yes, I want to kill an animal. Yes, I want that end success. But people are still doing what you're doing for fun without having that weapon or thinking about shooting that animal. So if we can, you know, take a step back and remember that gratitude makes everything enough and just enjoy the moment, like that is when it really unfolds for us and the magic can happen. So I love that. Well, let's shift gears into to a little PRS NRL talk because I am interested in hearing. You already said you were shooting out to quite a long distance in the deserts of Arizona, and that kind of got you started in long range shooting. At what point did you feel like you were a really good marksman, and at what point did you feel like, hey, I think I want to start competing in these shooting competitions, whether it's PRS and then obviously NRL Hunter came around not too long ago. And take us through that. What's that like being someone from the outside looking in? Is it intimidating? What's that experience?
Well, first of all, I don't think I'm that good. But uh, I don't know what it was like. You know, I I've shot a lot of guns in my life. Like I've put a lot of rounds down range, and it was just a thing where some people were doing it that I knew, and I'm like, hey, this seems like a fun opportunity. So the first thing I shot was PRS, and it's such a learning curve. Like you jump into a match, and it's just expect you're going to get destroyed on your
Mm,
first one. Everybody's way better than you, but everyone there will help you. It is insane.
interesting.
It is the best community for shooting I've ever been a part of.
Hmm.
You go to a match with, you'll be out there with a hunting rifle, and people will give you all kinds of gear to use. I'm like, hey, do you want to try to use my rifle this stage or something like that? Like everybody will help you. They'll give the skin off their back if they need to.
Okay.
Like it does not matter.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, and I've made great friends from that. Even some of our pro team, I've become really good friends with and shoot with all the time. Guys at work, I have one of my buddies who's in the sales side of things, on the NRL team, or NRL side. He's my teammate. I don't really shoot teams with anybody else, so yeah, you just meet good friends, and it's more of a bonding, hanging out time. Like, yeah, there's definitely people that want to shoot really well, like we all do. But
Mm,
I know my place. I'm not gonna win a match, but I'll compete. I'll have fun.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm there to have a good time. Like we spend all this money. PRS is not cheap by any means.
That was one of the questions I wanted to ask you is like break it down and let's talk about the people who they're like, okay, I've heard people talk about PRS. What does a competition look like? How many rounds do I need? What type of setup do I actually need to go through? What Leupold optics is going to be the best recommended for something like that? Like, break it down for us.
You can, it's getting better. So you can go about it a little bit cheaper than you used to. You don't need a custom action and a custom barrel and chassis and all that. You can buy a sequence hit off the shelf that'll work great. And then just a Mark IV, so you're already in a lot cheaper than you normally would be. It used to be the cost of entry. You're anywhere from like $6,000 to $10,000
Mm,
just for a rifle build. I still build most of my own guns. I shoot a lot of Seekins and stuff, or Browning, Weatherby still, but for competitions, I like to build my rifles. It just kind of works better for me.
yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot cheaper. Like a Mark IV is like $1,500. It's not going to break the bank. It is expensive compared to most, but for the features that you get where you can compete and something like that is not bad.
So you
Uh,
want a first focal plane is what I'm gathering?
100%. Yeah.
Uh, okay.
Yeah.
And then what power range do you recommend on a scope for a competition?
Um, a lot of people think they need a lot of power. Most PRS shooters, I can guarantee you, are probably going to be shooting around 20, 23 power, somewhere around there. Nobody goes up insanely high. The biggest thing is you want a lot of that reticle. So we're using a lot of subtension. So like we call them a Christmas tree.
Mhm.
So you have the PR2 or Tremor 3, H59, something like that. Um, so you need all those holdovers. You need the windage, everything like that. So you don't want to zoom all the way in and lose all that reticle. You want
Mm.
to have zoomed out a little bit where you can use it. So on a stage, I'll never even touch my magnification. I sit about 18 power on all mine,
Mm.
and I'll never, it doesn't matter how far the target is. Could be a mile, could be 200 yards. I'm not touching that magnification. It's staying the same.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. I like that. So you love to build your own rifles. You prefer custom, but you don't have to. You can go get a off the shelf rifle. You're looking at a magnification of that range. What's the distances that you're actually shooting, and what is PRS? Like, what's the purpose of it?
PRS is, it's just a competition. So you have about anywhere from 16 to 20 stages in a match. So it's going to be about, you know, 200 to 300 rounds for a 2-day match. Uh, you'll have one stage, you'll come up, you'll know the distances. So the targets will be laid out. The RO will point out the targets. They'll tell you the distance. A lot of us still like to range those just to make sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some matches where it gets a little sketchy on those distances.
Are you
But
sure?
oh yeah, I've had one where it's pretty far off every time, so you never know. But yeah, all the distances, so it's figuring everything out. You got to look at, and you can watch everybody else shoot it too. Yeah, every stage you rotate. So one stage you could be first, the next stage you'll be last, and you just rotate through. So you get to see everybody shoot it and kind of how their processes are, which is really good to learn on positional shooting. Um, so you'll do, if I'm shooting first, I'll look at the stage. If it's a bunch of rocks, I'm going to figure out, do I want to use bag? Do I want to use a bipod? Is it modified prone kind of stage or something like that? And then how many targets do I have? Do I have six? Do I have one? Do I have two? Typically, you have about 90 seconds or 2 minutes per stage to complete,
Hmm.
depending on the match. So it's, if you have one stage, there's a match close by called Lead Farm. There was one target, 12 positions. So you had to move. You couldn't even wait to see if your round impacted before you were moving to the next target
Oh
or the
wow.
next position. So like to even complete it. So they try to throw you for a loop, make it harder, make you think a bit. Use all kinds of gear, tripods, triple pole bipods, so the super long MDT ones. Uh, I use Armageddon gear bags, so you use a lot of single bag kind of stuff. So that's just throwing a shooting bag up and then putting your rifle on it.
Hmm.
These rifles also weigh like, 18, 28 pounds, somewhere in there.
And the
So they're
purpose of that is so that your gun doesn't move and you actually see your impact through your scope
correct, or your miss.
or your miss.
So
Right.
you
Yeah.
have a tape measure built into your reticle, right? So if you're using a detailed reticle like a Christmas tree, I have a tape measure built in there. So if I miss, I can measure exactly how much I missed by and make that correction really fast for the next shot.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So a PR1 reticle, your typical duplex, but with a bunch of hash marks both on the X and Y axis. You can get away with it, but you not necessarily recommended.
No, you can get away with that perfectly fine. There's a lot of people that shoot those. There could just be a stage in a match where you can't dial. Like it'll say in the match book, like you're not allowed to dial a single target. So then you have to use holdovers and windage for every single one.
Yeah.
So that's where a tree will come into play a lot.
Yes.
But
Okay.
but that's very rare. Most matches do not do that.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. So that sounds great. How long is a match typically? And I always hear people always like winning prizes or the prize table or whatever. Like, I feel like just for signing up for a match, like, there's a chance that you're going to walk away with something. Not that you do it for the prize, but is that also a part of the fun of the competition?
Yeah, luckily I am in the industry, so I don't typically walk the prize table. But a lot of people, yeah, you'll get free stuff out of it, whether it's you know bullets or something like that to help you reload for the next match. But matches typically you'll do check in Friday, so that's signing up, making sure you have everything, and then zeroing your rifle because you're traveling, so each location you want to make sure you're zeroing in. That's very important.
Hmm.
And then you'll shoot Saturday, Sunday, and then awards are usually Sunday night. So you're shooting 2 full days. It is a big investment. Like you're looking at gas getting there, flights, and then rental car, hotels. They're not the cheapest in the world to go to. That's why I honestly started shooting NRL Hunter. It's half the amount of ammo.
Mm,
It, you have weight restrictions on stuff, so it makes it a little bit more challenging, especially if you're building custom rifles to make sure you're in that weight class.
yeah.
Um, it, it's just a lot different. You still have the same days, so you shoot Saturday, Sunday, get awards, but the prize table is great. It's a good way for um, companies in the industry. We donate a lot to most prize tables. And pretty much any match you go to, if you don't see a Leupold scope on there, I messed up somehow. I should have sent one out. Um, but yeah, we're there all the time. And Nick Kidlicka, who was in charge of the shooting side, he did a great job of 5-6 years ago at a PRS match, you didn't see a single Leupold scope.
Mm,
And then now you see we have about 80% of the market on that. So
cool.
he's done a fantastic job of kind of doing that. And we do a great job. We have some of the best shooters in the world: John Pinch, Matt Alwine, Dan Bertacchini, all these guys that
Yeah.
are fantastic.
Yeah.
So
So is NRL Hunter just like a miniature version of PRS?
no, it's way different.
Break it down.
So NRL Hunter is you don't get to see anybody else shoot this stage. So like PRS, you get to see everybody shoot it. NRL is completely blind, so you don't know
Oh,
target. You know what the targets are and how many there are, but you don't know where they are. So you have to find the targets, range the targets, shoot the targets. If you're shooting individual, it's 4 minutes per stage. As a team, it's 6 minutes. So you could have two people looking for glass or looking through glass trying to find targets, but you also have to get through two shooters to shoot every single target.
interesting.
So it's very different. It's only about typically 100 rounds, so a lot less ammo. You have weight restrictions. So you have factory class, which has to be a factory rifle under 12 pounds. Then you have to open light, which is 12 pounds and under, and open heavy, which is 16 pounds and under. And then you have teams, which is everybody in teams can shoot 16 and under. But teams is the greatest way ever to shoot a match. It is so fun. You find one of your friends that you just mess with the entire time, and that's all you do. You just screw around for 2 days.
I love that. I love that. So are people then using their hunting rifle for NRL Hunter, or are they still going with a separate rifle?
100% hunting rifle. My daughter killed deer this year with my NRL rifle. So, yeah, same rifle, like, everybody will use it.
So then you're getting a bunch of different calibers as well, not like what you said earlier, six Creed, six Dasher, six GT, stuff like that. You really get more of a spread of, you know,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was a guy shooting a 7 Psalm, and I was RO in a target, and he hit it, like, just at the edge, and that target almost flew off. I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm gonna give you a win call because if you do that again, I think that target's gonna pop off."
dude, that's wild. Okay, cool. What do you prefer? NRL Hunter because of the team
Oh, yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The NRL Hunter is just it's more fun. Like, you get to hang out with one of your friends all day long, just mess around. Chris and I are great friends. We hunt together, shoot together, work together. So, yeah, we do a lot, and, he's, yeah, by far my best shooting partner. We are
Yeah.
terrible as a team, and you never want to see us shoot together, but we have a good time.
Dude, that's awesome. So is it the same type of thing where certain targets and you're moving and doing all that? So kind of like the same concept as PRS, but shifted slightly?
Yeah, and you kind of know before you get up there when you're blind. So if you see, you'll get up to a staging point and there'll be a sign that says you're going to have 4 coyotes. So if you have 4 coyotes, you know you're only going to have to shoot from one position, all 4 coyotes.
Mm,
But if you have one target, you know you're going to have to move to 4 different positions to shoot them. So
gotcha.
there's a way, and there's ways to game it. There's always gaming on competitions.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to find the easiest way to do everything, but
So are you shooting at animal targets in PRS or is it more in the hunter
sometimes.
side?
Sometimes you'll shoot animal targets in PRS. Most of them are going to be silhouettes or circles or squares. There are certain matches like the Koenig match in Colorado is all animal targets.
Mm,
But NRL is always animal targets. That's
because
all
that's the
there is.
purpose,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you're just learning to be a better hunter. And for your average person getting into it, if you find a local match, go to it. You're going to learn more. You'll have pro shooters there that'll help you out the entire time too. You'll learn more about you and your rifle and how to work it than anything else you'll ever do in your life. And you'll
Mm.
become far better hunter from one match than you ever will from anything else. You could shoot your entire life and still not know as much as one match of NRL.
Wow. Okay. This is the type of stuff I needed to hear, and our listeners need to hear as well. Like, go get involved, shoot your weapons, become a better marksman, so that when you have that one opportunity come hunting season, you can seize it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I shoot a lot. Like I went through couple years ago, I went through 8 barrels in 1 year, like, just burn them
Whoa.
out. So, like, you'll shoot a lot, if you really get into it, but you don't have to. You can bring your hunting rifle. 100 rounds through your gun is not gonna do anything. Most calibers are gonna get at least, like, 12, 1,300 rounds through a rifle before the barreling's gone or the rifling's gone inside, so, yeah, go shoot a match, and it's not gonna do anything. It'll just make you better.
That's so cool. All right, here's a question for you: MOA or mill?
Age-old question. Um So it depends on what you're doing. Most shooting things, MOA is perfect. Most hunting style stuff, shooting competitions, mills going to be your preferred. So the reason why we shoot mills in competitions versus MOA is it takes me a lot less adjustment to dialed targets. So like one mill is 3.6 inches, where one MOA is 1 inch. So there's 10 clicks per mill, where there's 4 clicks per MOA.
Hmm.
So if I need to shoot a 500 yard and then 800-yard target, might only take me like 3 or 4 clicks in a mill, where that could take me like 10, 15, 20 clicks in an MOA scope. So
Ah,
it's just about speed, and that's it.
and that's it.
Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, and
Okay,
then
well,
everybody shoots mills. So like if somebody's making a wing call, they're like, oh, it's like point 0.2. And you can't really do that with it. Like now I have to convert from mills to MOA if you're shooting MOA.
but the issue is that we live in America and gotta love that imperial scale, right? Like, let's
Yeah,
go.
but there's advantages to mills that a lot of people don't know. You can actually range a target with mills. So like based on the size, you can kind of guesstimate a range pretty well. So that was originally designed for military. You could, get the range off a human-sized target and be able to engage that target.
Mm,
Um, so there are advantages, but not a lot of civilians are going to use that. For your average hunting scope, MOA is way easier. Just everybody knows an inch and a quarter inch. It's the simplest thing in the world.
right. Put your thumb up from the knuckle to the tip. Like, let's go,
Yeah,
baby.
pretty much.
Dude, that's awesome. That is awesome. So, what's on the horizon for you in hunting? Like, you work in the industry, you love to shoot, you shoot a lot, you love to hunt, you're getting after it, you start at a young age. Like, where are you in your hunting journey? You already said you almost enjoy watching newer people take their first animals, but what's out there for you?
Yeah, it's weird. Like my kids are at the age where they're starting to hunt a lot, so we do a lot with them. My daughter killed her first deer this year, which I was probably more excited about than she was. But my buddy Chris never killed an animal with a bow, so took him out this year, got him a deer with a bow. For me, it's more helping newer hunters than
Yeah.
hunting myself. Like I still love hunting. I do it all the time. I get tags every year. Still put in draws in different states, like always trying to get different tags. I'll always hunt. But I don't know, seeing new hunters and like there's a different enjoyment out of them killing something. Like you see it on their face than if I kill like my 30th deer. Like nobody, I don't care as much as somebody that's killing their first one.
Uh-huh.
It's still super exciting, but seeing the joy on their face, so like I did it, and like he's been hunting with the bow for like 3 or 4 years, and then finally this year we got one. So it was like that enjoyment was just insane. We were having so much fun.
Yeah. I shot my very first buck with archery this year. And I filmed it. It's going to be releasing here on Carbon TV this spring. And my reaction, I filmed it. This was a solo hunt, so I didn't have a cameraman with me sitting in the blind or whatever. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my god, like over and over, all by myself, because of how like special and powerful that moment was. Like it's been
It
this many years, and I just now finally achieved it. Crazy special.
Oh, it's insane. And archery by far, like even more special. Like there's something, everybody thinks archery is a lot easier, especially the more they're getting into it. They're like, oh, I can do an elk call. Like, oh, calling a bull.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that easy. But yeah, seeing somebody with a bow, like, because it takes so much work. Like, if you're not out there shooting, like, my goal is to shoot at least 20 shots a day for
Hmm.
like 2 months leading up to the hunt. If you're not out there every day practicing, knowing your distances, getting everything dialed in, you're just setting up for failure.
Yeah.
Archery is one of those things where it is a constant work. You are not taking the day off. Like you got to be ready.
Hmm.
Rifle hunting, as much as I hate it, everybody that zeroes the day before their hunt, terrible idea. Zero way early, like get everything set up. But it's a lot easier. Most people are going to go out zero gun the day before and then go kill a deer. You cannot do that with a bow.
Yeah. Well, the people that are zeroing a gun the day before a hunt, also, those are the guys that are probably not putting in the trigger time like they need to.
Correct.
That's a judgment call, or but I guess you never want to assume, but that's an assumption. What have you seen in that regard?
I used to train people here too before I got this job. So I've seen beginner shooters, people have never shot a gun in their entire life, to people who've killed a lot of animals. And we'll go out to the range and you'll shoot, and we are, the us that shoot a lot are, you could have your worst PRS shooter is going to be it's still in the top 1% in the world at shooting, just because how much trigger time they have behind a gun.
Hmm.
But it, you can have great shooters that are really confident, but you never know what's going to go wrong. You always have to prepare for that what if. So, like, I bring tools out, I can mount scopes in the field, do whatever I need to. And, you know, people aren't ready for that. You get calls all the time like, hey, I can't zero in my scope. What's going on? And it's like, you have to walk them through it. And like, my hunt's tomorrow. I'm like, why don't we have this conversation 2 months ago? Like,
Right. Right.
so it's more about being prepared. Like go out 2 months before, even if you're still that's your only trip to the range. Just go out and make sure everything's working. It gives you plenty of time to set everything up. If there's any issues, gives you plenty of time to fix it. And that's the biggest thing. Like most guns off the shelf are going to perform fantastically nowadays. It used to be very different back in the day. There were some pretty bad bolt guns out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now they're all so good. Like, you get a $300 gun off the shelf, it's still gonna shoot sub-minute. They're just so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
No, it's really interesting that you say that, and I agree. Guns are performing they're outperforming shooters nowadays, it seems like.
Oh, yeah, the gun is not the problem, I am the problem.
Right. Well,
My gun shoots way better than I do.
so with the shooter being the problem, what are the mental checklist items that you go through when you are shooting a gun or in a competition or at an animal?
For us, it's actually really simple. The first time what I do when I first go to the range is I practice the basics. Trigger pull, breathing, and hand placement on everything, making sure the rifle's all set up. Most people wrap their hand around their rifle.
Hmm.
You don't want to wrap. If I'm wrapping and pulling, I can go like this or torque the gun,
Yep.
right? So
And
you float your thumb.
and if they're right-handed, that means they're always missing to the left, typically, right?
Typically with the trigger press, yeah.
Yeah.
And a good way to actually see what you're doing with a trigger press is to dry fire a lot. So even in your house, put it on like the back of your couch and just sit there and watch, and be really steady. You'll pull the trigger. If you see the reticle move left or right, you're doing something wrong.
Mm,
The only thing that should happen is a slight rise, and that's it. So
okay.
if you're even ducking, you see that reticle drop, that means you're pushing into the gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you'll see exactly what you're doing wrong real quick. And that costs no money, right? You're just sitting at your house dry firing. So I don't see everybody should do it. It's easy.
Right.
Mm.
Dude, sit on a couch, put your gun on a tripod and just, like lean back and hang out. Just bam, rack it. Bam. you
Oh yeah.
know?
Oh, if my neighbors like could see into my house half the time, they'd be like, "What the hell is going on?" I'll bore sight my gun out the window at the neighbor's roof.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay, so not wrapping the thumb. You don't want to do that over the stock. Um, finger. Are you concentrating on the press? Are you in the crease of your finger or the pad? Like what are you doing to create constant repetition?
You want to be right in the center of the pad. So my preference is it's all preference when it comes to trigger type. I like a flat trigger so I can kind of grab anywhere and I'm always going to be pulling the same. But you want to do basically draw a line from your finger to your chest and you're just pulling into your chest.
Yeah.
So it's just a straight line back, and that's what you want to do as much as possible. And then the thing people mess up a lot is breathing. You always have a second to catch your breath. Like, you could be breathing heavy, but you want to pull that trigger in that point of we call it natural respiratory pause. So you have a pause between your inhale and then your exhale.
Hmm.
At that pause is where you want to pull the trigger because you're not doing anything. And
Ah,
it's the natural point where people will start doing it and then they'll hold their breath at that point. But you need to keep breathing through it. And you'll see if you're looking through the scope, you'll see where you pauses. And that's where you're wanting to pull the trigger.
interesting. How long did it take you to like make that subconscious?
Oh, I still don't. I suck at it. I like I catch myself doing it, like going through that all the time and not paying attention to where when I'm actually breathing. And I'll like be in the middle of a stage and be like, I'm not breathing. Like, what are you doing? Slow down.
Ah,
So it's always a struggle. It's shooting's the hardest thing and it's always the worst thing. Like you can slap your trigger, so that's immediately shooting coming off the trigger. You never want to do that. You want to pull, see your impact, and then come off the trigger.
hmm,
Slapping it could cause you to torque it too, because the round's still making its way through the barrel. So if it's making its way through the barrel and you're coming off of it right away, it's pulling the gun, right? So you want to make
yeah,
sure you're sitting on there.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. No, see, and this is a lot of stuff that if you're just picking up your gun and shooting the day before hunting season or whatever, like our job. And I was talking to Matty Nelson at Seekins Precision about this. About
Maddie's great.
dude, he's a savage. I
Yeah.
love it. I was like, dude, tripods. Like he goes, dude, you got to. I was like, why? He goes, and I don't care. You go get a big one, take it in the backcountry, pack it in. He goes, he's an old military guy. What is your mission? To kill an animal. So you take every tool that will give you the biggest advantage to kill that animal. He goes,
Yeah.
that's it. That's all that matters.
Look at guns nowadays too. Like how many guns come with an ARCA plate on them? Like
Yes.
or pick rail. Like they're so easy to just clip into a tripod.
Yeah.
So yeah, learning how to shoot off a tripod is probably the best thing anybody could ever do nowadays for hunting. 90% of shots you can take off a tripod.
Dude, it's so fascinating. The hunting, the culture of hunting is progressing. It's always been like very slow to catch up with modern society.
Oh yeah.
But advances in technology as of late, within like what the last 3 years specifically, have just blown up in what you can do with shooting and hunting.
And I think that all stems from competition kind of shooting. Like if you're looking at a lot of the guns and how they're coming out of the factory now, like Seekins is, coming out with or just announced their NRL build.
Hmm.
You have, Weatherby's coming out with kind of more NRL kind of style guns. Everybody is. So you're getting the pick rail on the front, Arca, like a little 2-inch Arca in the back to clip onto a tripod. I would much rather not have a bipod and have a tripod in the field. Like the amount of times where I can just shoot off a tripod is way more than a bipod.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. My issue is that I am filming stuff, and so I have to have a tripod for filming and for, you know,
Yeah. Makes it a little bit harder.
we're like, oh man, let's bring it all. So that's funny.
Oh, the one thing people don't understand about filming hunts is you lose so many animals because you can't get them on camera or
Right.
can't get it in position.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you on him? No. Are you on him? I can see him. Okay, I'm good. Well, I can't. Like,
Yeah.
dude.
Now he's gone.
Yeah, the struggle is real. I love that. All right, brother. Well, let's talk a little bit about the releases for 2025. At SHOT Show, got to see the new VX6 HD Gen 2, and what else? Talk about it all. What are you guys pretty excited and jacked about to launch this year?
I think the VX6HD Gen 2 is by far the most exciting thing. A lot of people know, especially with external dials, you're always having to bring a freaking Allen wrench out there. And
Yes,
how many times do you go to the range? You're like, I don't have the stupid Allen wrench.
all the time.
So now the VX6 HD Gen 2 completely toolless dial system. So just a quick lever in the back, pops off, good to go. Has a lot of great other features. Some I like a lot. Actually has an increase in internal adjustment range with the new design of the main tube. So you're being able to dial out further. That's not even that. Putting that on an older rifle, a lot of older rifles, the tolerances weren't as great. So you might have to use more internal adjustment to
Hmm.
get zeroed. So it helps you out there. You're also getting then integrated throw lever like the Mark V on there, so a little more tactical. It's just kind of easier. Like, how many times you've been out there in gloves and it's like hard to grip your
Dude,
magnification. So
100%. I don't understand why the majority of scopes don't just come with something that you can put your thumb on and just push.
yeah.
Because grabbing and twisting with your wrist is such a pain in the tush, man. Like, come on.
Yeah, and it's so easy. Like I can sit if I'm trying to grab and twist like I feel like I always come off the target a lot more than
Yep.
if I have a throw lever, it's just an easy movement. So I can stay on target a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of our biggest one. We do have some cool stuff coming out later this year. There's some very interesting things in probably a couple weeks. So
Oh,
I pay attention to that too.
be
But
on the lookout.
yeah, we've done some fun stuff. I think we're optics in general in the past 10 years just looks what it's done. Like you've had insane improvements compared to what we grew up with. Like the LRP, my first one versus the Mark V is just an insane difference between the two.
Hmm.
Even the Mark IV, like the what you get for that is crazy. Front focal plane scope, good magnification range, 6 to 24, 8 to 32, 4.5 to 18, something like that. You're getting insane magnification ranges, uh, awesome reticles, and it's for $1,500 or $1,600 or less. It's kind of a hard scope to beat. Um, 6HD is still the best hunting scope you could possibly buy, though. It'll do everything you ever want, kill everything you ever want. I still hunt with the 3 to 18 VX6 Gen 1, so it'll do everything you ever want to in this world for hunting, especially with the CDS system. The new scope comes with two. So say
Oh, okay. Yeah.
you hunt at home, and then you need one for the mountains, like
Yep.
you get two dials.
Yeah. Makes a big difference. That was one of my biggest issues with the CDS dials is like, I don't know where I'm going to necessarily be hunting. And so I don't want to put a dial on that isn't accurate for me. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, or you get one like say back home where you're at, you can shoot with lead, and then you want to go shoot something in California, you have to shoot with copper bullets.
Hmm.
So you can make two different one for each load and be fine.
Yeah.
Um, and so there's a lot of advantages to it. I think it's kind of the easy button. Like most people aren't going out hunting with a Kestrel like me because I'm an idiot. But
I don't know if idiot is the right term because that sounds like you are pretty precise on what you're doing.
yeah, I'm pretty meticulous as far as shooting. My gunsmith, my barrel smith, I send my action to him so he can blueprint it, so I can make my barrel specifically for that action. We're very meticulous when it comes to shooting competition, so I bring that over to the hunting world.
Yep.
But you don't need to be that. Like, look at the target range on an elk. It's pretty dang big. Like, so,
Right. Right. That makes sense. Okay, so one of the questions I have, and I'm sure a lot of people are being like, yeah, okay, you guys have released this new scope, or you're doing these different things. Like last year was the Mark IV, or you already have the Mark V. Like, I understand bells and whistles, but when it comes to optical clarity and how good glass is from one model to another, where's the dividing line? Is a Mark IV the exact same glass features as the 5? Is it the same as a VX6? Like, how do these vary as far as what you're going to get as an end user?
they're a lot of them are pretty close. So whenever it comes to glass, if you look like at a microscopic view of glass, it's super just up and down, like the
Hmm.
craziest mountain peaks you'll ever see. So it's about getting the prescription correct through the entire way through the scope. If you look at like a VX6, I think has 16 pieces of glass in that scope.
Wow.
So getting that prescription correct is the hardest part. And then also 3 to 18 power is it's a lot harder. Like most scopes growing up when we were younger were 3 9s. They're all 3x systems. So now we have 6x systems, 5x systems. It makes it a little bit more complicated. Yet you do have better glass. Usually the more you spend, you're getting better coating, so low light performances. And that's typically your hunting time. So the VX5 and the VX6 are going to be relatively close, and those are going to be your top of the line hunting glass. The VX Freedom is going to be your entry level. So great. Like I've seen that scope destroy other scopes in low light for that are like 5 times the price. So
Mhm.
it's pretty crazy. But all of our scopes from our $300 VX Freedom up to our $3,200 Mark V are all tested the same. So they're tested way beyond military standards. Um, I think the coolest story I've ever heard is for our impact testing, like seeing the recoil it could handle. We built a gun, which probably should never have been built. The guy shot it twice and detached his retina because the recoil was so bad.
Oh my gosh.
So then they built a machine to duplicate that, and the machine cracked the foundation of our building. So then they had to dig out and lay a new concrete pad.
Whoa.
And every single scope that will be tested up to 5,000 impacts. So they'll withstand everything you can put through. Recoil is not going to damage a scope. What you're going to get is making sure your torque specs are correct, on your rings, or just dropping it, run it over with a truck. Things happen sometimes, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
When it comes to the recoil management, you brought that up. So like the VX Freedom has the exact same recoil management as your high end scopes.
Yeah, yeah, the same. So what a lot of people don't know is there's one gun out there that is notorious for destroying scopes. It's the Scar.
Yep.
That the recoil pattern's similar to a air gun or a pellet gun.
Hmm.
So though air guns and pellet guns are actually more damaging on a scope than 90% of bolt guns out there.
Really?
Yeah, so it has a double recoil pattern. So whenever you shoot bolt gun, all your recoil is going back towards you,
Yep.
right? So air gun will go this way, and then you'll feel the same inertia going forward because the bolt is the heavy part that's going up.
Mm.
So most scopes aren't designed to handle that. So our recoil testing goes up and down. So you get the full pattern. So like our scopes will handle pretty much anything you put them on. A lot of people will put on their scopes if they're air gun rated, and that means they've been tested for that recoil pattern. Where ours, we don't put that because they're all going to handle it, so it doesn't really
Dude,
matter.
that's wild to think. Like, hey, our scope is air gun rated when you're like, yeah, but can it handle uh what is the large calibers? A Lapua, like a
Yeah,
338. Can it handle that or a 50 BMG? What? No. It can handle an air gun? Come on now, get out of here.
I know it's the funniest thing, and I learned that when I started working here. I'm like, that's not right. Like that's insane. And then they show you like the because we'll put on guns, we'll actually put machines to test and see where the peak is on recoil and everything like that. So then we can duplicate it on our
Yeah.
recoil machine.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the air gun, it's just the weird inertia of the bolt going forward that most guns you don't feel. So it just throws it up.
Trippy. That's wild. Okay, so you're talking, glass being pretty doggone good. You got features, all that. Uh, Average hunter. The average hunter. What scope would you? Obviously, you work at Leupold. You have you have a marketing responsibility. Like, what are you gonna say? The average hunter that shots maybe 200 yards. Maybe it's mountain, maybe it's whitetail country or whatever. Like, just offhand shooting. What scope are you gonna put on them?
Optics are always buy once, cry once. So the Leupold is a lifetime purchase. Like we still service scopes from like the 40s, when we first started making them.
Yeah.
So it is a lifetime purchase, passed down to your family members, your kids, everything like that. So for me, I love a VX5 3 to 15. I
Mm,
think it's like the perfect hunting scope. Like it's the best bang for your buck glass. I would challenge that glass against pretty much any scope in the world.
yeah.
I love that thing. So yeah, 3 to 15 will kill anything in this world, do anything you ever want to do.
Yeah. Oh man, I agree. I got a couple VX5 3 to 15s, and they did damage this year. Just
Yeah.
absolutely hammered some animals. It was beautiful.
Yeah, they're good. And the only downside, like the reason why the VX6 I like a little bit better sometimes now is because I can dial in wind. So if I'm taking a longer shot, I can actually dial my windage instead of taking off the cap and then dialing it.
Yep.
You can use the reticles to some degree, depending on if you have like the Windplex or the TMOA. But I've gotten into the past couple of years dialing in my wind a lot more. So I like that feature on the VX6.
Is the Gen 2 feature of the toolless cap system gonna be something that is across the board on different scopes, or is that something you can't talk about? Or
Stay tuned.
stay tuned. Perfect. Makes sense. I mean, because at what point do you need to have tools if you've developed the toolless system? Seriously, the people, your engineers that figured that out, whatever process it was, must have been like, what the crap, man? Why did we not do this earlier? Or how do you know?
You wouldn't believe how many iterations of this dial we went through.
Really?
So, like, it actually it's a super complicated process to actually do. They take a lot longer to build than our old dial system. But we've tested this for probably 2 years, before we've actually let it out, and, I got to test it pretty early, which was fun. I've literally put one on the ground and stomped on it with a lever open to see if we could break it. So yeah, it went through a lot of iterations before we got to this one, and I think they killed it. The engineers are, I don't know how they do it in their mind. I can't do that, but it's pretty amazing.
So are you guys gonna sell the Gen 1s anymore? Or are those just like, if you find one, it might be discounted because it's in the stores or whatever? Or how does that go?
Yeah, yeah. Gen ones are gone, so we have no more in stock. We're not building anymore. If you find them, they will be discounted. You can find a pretty good steal on one now, so it's a good thing to pick up. I you can't be knocked for buying the Gen 1s over the Gen 2s if you want, but I like the extra features on the Gen 2 compared to the Gen 1. So it just depends on what you're going for. Like everybody has a budget and what they need it for. Like a VX Freedom for 80% of the people is probably a great scope.
Hmm.
It'll do everything you want. I know whitetail hunters like a larger objective and stuff like that. So, you only get it to 50 millimeter in a VX Freedom. You can go up to a 3 to 15 by 56 in the VX5 or a 3 to 18 by 56 in the VX6. So
I
get a
had
little
a
bit more light.
I had a 3 to 15 by 56 VX5. I ended up selling it to one of my good buddies because he needed a scope, and I had mounting issues. The gun that I wanted to put on didn't have an adjustable comb, and that 56 Bell had to raise that scope up so much that it didn't fit my face properly on my gun. I was like, oh, I know I could buy another gun or put a different stock on this or whatever, but he was in need of a scope, so I passed it over to him. But yeah, that these are the things that a lot of people don't necessarily think through when they're buying a scope, right? It's like, okay, well,
Oh,
it's more like, what's in my budget,
yeah.
right?
And, the comb thing that you're talking about, it's more important to be comfortable behind your gun than it is necessarily to let an insane amount of light in.
Hmm.
You can always hang out for 20 more minutes or 10 more minutes if you need a little bit more light. But if you're floating above your rifle, that recoil is going to hit a lot more if your face is just floating above that buttstock. So I think it's more important to always be sucked down into it. I typically use 44 millimeter objective for the 3 to 15 or the 3 to 18. So, and I have adjustable combs on pretty much every rifle, and I still like to keep it lower to the barrel. So it's just more comfortable.
I love it. What caliber is your favorite to shoot?
I think one of the greatest calibers made. The 7 PRC is insane. If you look ballistically, it's crazy.
Yes.
I'm excited about the sub backcountry though too.
Are you?
To
Are you?
have have a short barrel gun. So if they come out with like a 6.5 one
Uh-huh.
or like a 6 millimeter one and then a 30 cal one, imagine having like a 14-inch barrel with a bullet flying 3,000 feet per second.
Yeah.
Like it's insane.
Yeah.
Um, but the 7 PRC ballistically is insane. It's a crazy gun. We do a lot of training out in Madras, our range, and you get a. It's ballistically for shooting like mile targets or distance is awesome.
Mm. I'm actually going to be getting the 7 backcountry this year from Kelbley's. We're working on that, and they weren't one of the original gun manufacturers that worked with Federal to release in 7 backcountry, but they're going to be building one, and I'm going to be getting one, and I'm I reload. I've heard, it's supposed to be reloadable, but you need special type of dies, and there's a lot to see and walk through first. But yeah, I shoot suppressed, right? Like a suppressor is always on the end of my gun for multiple reasons. One, because shooting hearing protection. I love my ears. I'm a DJ. Like I've wasted my hearing so bad on a Friday and Saturday night at the club, goom 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 goom, just having it, blasting in the background. But I needed to turn my
That
headphones up to be able to.
tendinitis is fantastic.
Yeah, right, exactly. You're a military guy. You probably deal with that quite a bit. Um, so love suppressors. Also, like at what point we always say safety first, safety first. Well, then why are you not putting a suppressor on the end of your gun and actually protecting your hearing and the hearing of those around?
I love a suppressor. Like once you start shooting suppressed, you'll never go back. It is the best thing in the world. Especially with kids. If you have kids,
Yes,
buying a suppressor is fantastic. Because nobody goes out there wearing ears all day. Like
right.
nobody wants to. So you don't want your kids going out there and blasting their ears out. At a young age.
Well, not only that, but shooting a gun with earmuffs on, shooting a
Yeah, not
rifle with
comfortable.
it's so hard. Let alone having a kid who you're trying to protect their ears and little earplugs. Like, okay, well, so challenging. Like,
Oh, and then you're screaming because they have the earplugs in, and then the deer's running off.
yes, yeah, no, suppressed 100%. Do you shoot your competitions with a suppressor on, or do you shoot those with a break?
I go back and forth all the time. I would say majority of them I shoot suppressed. There are some very good breaks out there, so we're very concerned competition wise about recoil reduction, stuff like that. But our breaks are also, we're spending $500-600 on a break, so it's not your typical one that you're going to buy in the store. So at that point, like you're pretty close to a suppressor price. I would say if you want to get into competition shooting, like just get a 30 cal suppressor. A 30 cal suppressor will do almost any gun you can think of for bolt guns.
Yeah,
It'll help with recoil. It'll increase muzzle velocity, and it'll just protect your ears. So, the, all us like if you're getting into it or getting into hunting in general, just buy a can. It's way better.
yeah, dude, 100%. And you can get a can in like a week now. Like,
Oh, I had one approved in less than 24 hours. I had one approved in like 21 hours. I'm
yeah,
like, that's insane. I remember waiting 14 months.
dude, I waited a year and a half for my very first one. I was like, oh, I can't wait to protect myself.
Hey, the Hearing Safe Act is back in Congress. So
you know,
we might
there
not even have to do Form 4.
there are a lot of people that need to, if you're not into politics, it's time to get into politics and understand, right? The ATF needs to be abolished first and foremost. Okay, like
No
I'm
comment.
I will say that like we need less bureaucracy. Unelected officials trying to make decisions to make you a criminal or make decisions that are laws that weren't voted by the people or the elected officials. So, comment, my comment, get rid of it. Like, so-
Well, I'll just say, look at the rest of the world. Like most countries, you could just buy suppressors over the counter.
Europe is like they prefer you to hunt with a
Oh,
suppressor.
parts of Europe, it's legally required.
Yes,
No,
exactly. Yeah.
no.
So, I mean, we'll have to do another like political podcast if you actually want to share your opinions. Like, not affiliated with anyone.
Yeah. It's I think our country's heading in the right direction. We had a great election year. I think for what we like to do. So I'm pretty excited to see what the next 2 years brings, and I think everybody will have a good time.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
100%. Dude, everyone reaps the benefits, right? All boats rise on a rising tide. Like, let's
yeah,
go.
yeah, and you can't be mad. Like the shooting world has taken a lot of hits in the past like 10 years or so, and we need a break.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, just real quick before we wrap this up, we covered the VX6 HD Gen 2. Anything else you want to hit on before we wrap up this episode?
We have some new spotting scopes coming that are out. The SX2, SX4 Pro Guide. So pretty cool features, like I was talking about with clipping on your rifle, Arca Swiss, built into the actual footprint of it. So most tripods you buy now are all going to be Arca Swiss. So super easy, super convenient, amazing glass for what it is. Uh, you know, just a fantastic thing. I would say stay tuned in the next few weeks. You might see new stuff, and it's gonna be a fun year for Leupold. So I'm pretty excited.
Heck yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Matthew, thank you so much for coming on the show, brother. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, your insight, and your passion for hunting, shooting, and the outdoors, brother.
Oh, no problem. It's fun. I enjoy it. It was a good time.
Hey, if someone's like, okay, Leupold says, VIP warranty, taking care of people, all that lifetime, handing it down. Um, what's the best way? Is it just calling Leupold and be like, hey, can you guys take care of me, or
Oh,
how?
100%. 1-800 Leupold. We'll take care of everything.
I've never actually had to warranty a Leupold product, which is
That's the
nice,
greatest part about our warranty. It's one you'll never have to use.
right?
We get less than 1% of scopes back that we've ever sent out.
Mm,
So it is one that you'll never have to use. It's there if you need it. But yeah, just call 1-800 Leupold, open Monday through Friday. Like we'll help you out, any way we can. We'll make sure you're ready for season.
that's so cool. I love it, brother. Thank you so much for coming on the show. What do you got planned for this fall?
Still wait. So our draws don't come out until May. So we're still waiting on some stuff here. I believe I need to check my Montana. I'm pretty sure I drew out there. But hopefully get a couple of antelope tags out there. And then waiting on a couple of draws in Idaho. Probably still have another year for that, but gonna do some deer, some elk. I love archery elk season, so I'll always be out there with a bow.
Sweet. Sweet. Hey, when is Leupold gonna get into the thermal game with like actual thermal, not just the LTO?
We're not. Right now, there's such good companies out there that make such amazing, thermals and how crazy the thermal game is gone. Like you look at every year and the technology that comes out, like trying to hop in now is going to be kind of an insane thing. We'll leave the people that are good at it to do theirs, but
There you go.
yeah.
Yeah, stay in your lane, man.
Yeah.
For sure. I love it. I love it. Well, brother, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing everything. Listeners, thank you so much for checking out this episode and tuning in to another episode of Soul Seekers Podcast. Remember that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure and that you can never outgive good as mentorship is conservation. If you can like, comment, subscribe, leave a review, rating. Everything helps this show, but ultimately, what helps this show is making sure there's more hunters. So it's time for us to stand up, be the change you want to see in the world. Don't let it be up to somebody else. Take a stand, let your voice be heard, educate yourself. We're all ambassadors for hunting, shooting, and the outdoors. Be blessed. For Johnny Mack and Matthew Hayes at Leupold. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating as it helps us share our mission of mentorship is conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure.